Welcome to the Pro Ticker Deep Dive.
It's great to be here.
I have to tell you, I looked at the calendar this morning. It's
Yeah.
Friday, February 13th, 2026. And my first thought was, maybe just stay in bed.
Friday the 13th, yeah.
Exactly. It's supposed to be for bad luck, horror movies, that sort of thing. Definitely not a day you want to be messing with the markets.
Right.
But then I saw the pre-market numbers for Apple, and wow, if you're holding that stock, today feels like the exact opposite of unlucky.
Oh, I think lucky is an understatement. It feels more like a vindication.
Vindication, that's a strong word. But, looking at these numbers, maybe it fits. We're dissecting Apple's Q1 2026 earnings today.
We are.
And we just have to start with a headline that is, it's just melting down financial Twitter right now. The revenue.
Really?
$143.8 billion.
It's a staggering figure. It's hard to even wrap your head around.
It's huge. And I want to ground this for everyone because a number like 143 billion can just sound kind of abstract,
For sure.
That's roughly the entire annual GDP of a country like Kuwait. Apple just generated an oil nation's entire yearly economic output in just 90 days.
And this is the part that I think has investors so fixated. They did it while growing 16% year over year
16%.
at that scale. Usually when you get to this size, when you're the biggest company on the planet, the law of large numbers is supposed to kick in. Growth slows down.
Yeah, you become a utility stock, basically.
Exactly. You're supposed to be slow and steady. Apple just put up growth numbers that look like a hot startup.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate for just a second here. We all saw the guidance they put out before the quarter. Was this a real, genuine performance beat? Or did they just sandbag the expectations, set the bar so low they could easily hop over it? I feel like we hear Apple beats expectations every single quarter.
That's a fair question. And look, they are notorious for conservative guidance. It's their MO.
Right, so what was the guidance?
They forecasted between, I think it was 136 and 139 billion. So yes, the bar was definitely set to be cleared.
Okay.
But they didn't just clear it. They blew the roof off the building. They beat the top end of their own range by almost $5 billion.
$5 billion?
You can't just attribute a $5 billion surprise to sandbagging. That's not just conservative guidance. That is real organic demand that even their own internal models clearly didn't predict.
Okay, so if it's real, where did all that money come from? Because, for the last 2 years, the narrative in my feed has been Apple is boring now, or this super cycle is a myth, and especially China is gone.
The Apple is dead narrative. It's a perennial favorite, comes around every couple of years.
It really does.
But the breakdown of these numbers shows exactly why those critics were so wrong this time. It really all comes down to 2 words. Product mix.
Okay, decode that for us. Product mix always sounds like some kind of corporate jargon for we sold different things.
It is, but the implication is huge. It means they didn't just sell more iPhones, though they did. Unit sales were up about 8%.
Okay, 8% more phones.
But they sold way more of the expensive iPhones. The revenue for the iPhone segment hit $85.3 billion. That's up over 23%.
Wait. So units are up 8%, but the money from those units is up 23%.
Exactly. You do the math on that spread.
That means the average selling price, the ASP, must have just skyrocketed. Everybody bought the Pro model.
Everybody bought the Pro and the Pro Max. And this is the absolute genius of how they rolled out Apple Intelligence.
The new AI features.
Right. By gating the best AI features, the visual search, the real-time translation stuff, by tying them to the newest chips, they essentially made any phone older than the iPhone 17 look obsolete overnight.
So they basically engineered a forced upgrade cycle for anyone who cares about being on the cutting edge.
They did. It wasn't just buy this phone, the camera's a little better. It was buy this phone or get left behind in the AI era. It turns the upgrade from a commodity decision into a capability decision.
That is a fundamental shift in marketing, isn't it?
A massive one. And we saw the results of that nowhere more clearly than in the one region everyone was terrified about, Greater China.
Oh, man. 2024, 2025, you couldn't read a tech blog without hearing Huawei is back, or Chinese patriotism is killing Apple, or just flat out, Apple is dead in China.
And that was the prevailing narrative. And to be fair, it was based on some real data. Huawei's Mate 60 and 70 series were absolutely eating into Apple's market share.
They were.
But then you look at this quarter's numbers, Greater China revenue grew by 37.88%.
Almost 38%. That's not a recovery.
Yeah.
That's a conquest. How do you flip the script that fast?
It's fascinating. It's as much about sociology as it is economics, I think. What we're seeing is that while the domestic competition from Huawei is strong, the super premium segment, the very top of the market, is still completely dominated by Apple. And when an economy is a bit shaky, which the Chinese economy has been, you see something called the lipstick effect. Consumers might pull back on buying big-ticket items like houses or cars, but they still want to buy luxury goods. They still want status symbols.
So the iPhone becomes the affordable luxury. You can't buy that new apartment in Shanghai, but you can definitely get the new iPhone 17 Pro Max.
Exactly. It becomes the status symbol you can still attain. And that iPhone 17, with its unique AI capabilities, differentiated itself so much from the local competition that it reclaimed that badge. It was the phone that said, I have the best tech in the world.
So Apple wasn't dead in China. It was maybe just hibernating, waiting for the right product to come along.
I think they were waiting for the silicon to finally catch up to the promise of what they wanted to do with AI. And now that it has, the cash register is just ringing off the hook.
Speaking of the cash register, let's talk bottom line. You know the saying, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity.
Net income was $42.1 billion.
In 90 days.
In 90 days. Just to put that into perspective for you, that's more profit than Amazon, Google, and Meta often generate in a quarter combined, depending on the cycle.
That's insane. So what are they even doing with all that money? Are they buying islands? Building a space elevator?
Nothing so sci-fi, unfortunately. They're doing the most Wall Street thing imaginable. They generated about $54 billion in operating cash flow.
$54 billion.
And they turned around and gave nearly $32 billion of it right back to shareholders through stock buybacks and dividends.
Which, of course, explains why the stock has been on a tear, up 18% in just the last 6 months. It's a defensive cash cow play and a growth play, all at the same time.
It's a value stock that grows like a tech startup. It's a very rare combination, and it's exactly why it's a core holding for basically every pension fund and ETF on the planet.
Okay, so the hardware side is just. It's a juggernaut. But you mentioned something at the top, a strategic inflection point. That phrase usually implies a fundamental change in the business model.
It does.
If they're just selling more phones, even more expensive ones, that's not really a change, is it? That's just a really good quarter.
You're right. The inflection point isn't about the hardware sales themselves. It's about what those sales create. And to understand that, we have to talk about the golden number.
You're talking about the installed base of devices.
2.5 billion.
2.5 billion active devices.
Yeah,
I mean, that's nearly a third of the entire population of the planet.
It is the single largest, wealthiest, most engaged digital demographic in human history. And this is what I mean when I say they're transitioning from selling boxes to managing a population.
Wow.
Apple isn't just a manufacturer anymore. They're the landlord of a digital city with 2.5 billion residents.
And landlords, as we know, collect rent. Which brings us directly to the services division.
And that rent is going up. Services revenue hit $30.01 billion this quarter, up 14%. Another record breaker.
Right.
But we need to look under the hood at what's driving that growth, because it's not just people paying for more iCloud storage anymore. The mix inside the services division is getting really interesting.
I saw the headlines about Formula One. Now, as a huge fan of Drive to Survive, that really jumped out at me. But is a sports deal really a needle mover for a company of this scale?
Strategically, it's a massive deal. It's a 5-year agreement to bring every single Formula One race exclusively to Apple TV in the U.S.
And this comes right after the huge success of that F1, the movie they produced.
Talk about vertical integration, right?
Nice.
They make the movie makes the sport even more popular here in the States, and then they turn around and lock down the exclusive rights to the actual races. So now, if you got hooked by the movie, you have to subscribe to watch the real thing.
That is the classic ecosystem flywheel, using their content arm to drive subscriptions to their services arm.
And because they control the hardware, the Apple TV box, the iPad, the iPhone, they can offer unique features, like letting you switch between multi-view cockpit cameras during a race.
Oh, wow.
Your traditional cable broadcast just can't compete with that. It completely changes the value proposition of Apple TV plus Lasso. It's no longer just that place that has Ted Lasso.
It's now the place for live sports.
Correct. And that locks you in. You might cancel Netflix for a couple of months if there's nothing new to watch. But if you're an F1 fan, you are not canceling Apple TV during the 9-month racing season. It crushes churn.
Okay, so sports is one pillar. What about the other side of that? I saw a new line item called Apple Creator Studio. What is that?
This might be the sleeper hit of the entire quarter. It's so smart. Traditionally, if you're a creative pro, a YouTuber, a podcaster, a musician, you bought Final Cut Pro or Logic Pro as separate, expensive, standalone pieces of software.
Or, more likely, you subscribe to Adobe Creative Cloud, which is what most of the industry uses.
Right. And Apple is going directly for Adobe's jugular here. They've bundled Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, even Pixelmator Pro, and a whole suite of new generative AI tools into a single subscription.
Oh, that is smart. Because if you're a creator, you almost always need all of those things. You need to edit the video, mix the audio, create the thumbnail.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. The whole suite is hyper-optimized specifically for Apple Silicon. The AI video rendering, the voice isolation tools, it all runs locally on your M4 or M5 chip at blazing speeds.
So once you build your entire workflow around Creator Studio,
you literally cannot switch to a Windows PC. You are locked in by both the software subscription and the hardware requirement.
it is ruthless. I kind of love it.
It is, and from a financial perspective, this is the buffer. This is the protection against the volatility of the hardware market. Even if someone doesn't buy a new iPhone every single year, they keep paying for Creator Studio. They keep paying to watch F1. They keep paying for iCloud.
That recurring revenue is what smooths out the peaks and valleys.
And it turns Apple into something that looks a lot like a utility company. You pay your electric bill, your water bill, and your Apple bill.
And having that kind of stability is what allows them to take these huge, risky bets.
Yeah.
Like their big pivot into AI.
Which is the perfect segue. Let's talk about the AI strategy, because for a while there, let's be honest, everyone said Apple was way behind.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
The joke was Microsoft has OpenAI, Google has DeepMind, and Apple has Siri, who can set a timer for you.
That was the narrative. And frankly, for a while, it was kind of true. They were caught flat-footed by the whole generative AI explosion. But this partnership with Google and their Gemini model has completely flipped the script.
Okay, I want to push back on this partnership.
Yeah.
Because from the outside, it looked a little bit like a white flag.
A white flag. Interesting. How so?
Well, look at the cash flow.
Yeah.
$54 billion this quarter alone. They have effectively unlimited resources. And yet, for the really heavy lifting part of AI, the world knowledge, they had to go to Google and license Gemini. Doesn't that feel like an admission that they just couldn't build it themselves?
It is an admission, but I'd argue it's a strategic admission, not an admission of failure. You have to look at the economics of training these large language models right now.
Okay.
To train a foundational model like GPT-4 or Gemini Ultra, you're burning tens of billions of dollars on compute power, on electricity, on cooling. It's a capital furnace.
You're just shoveling cash into a server farm in the middle of the desert.
Exactly. And Apple looked at that furnace and said, why should we be the ones burning our money? Google has to do it to protect its search business. Microsoft has to do it to drive Azure. Apple doesn't. They chose to be a smart follower.
So let Google spend the $50 billion to train the model.
And we'll just build the best user interface that sits on top of it.
They're essentially renting the brain, but they own the body.
That is the perfect analogy. And it's important to remember they are still building their own smaller, more private brains that live right on your device. This is the hybrid model that's so key to their strategy.
Okay, break that down for me. If I ask Siri a question now, who's actually answering? Is it Tim Cook or is it Sundar Pichai?
It depends entirely on the question. If you ask something personal, like what's on my calendar for today, or summarize this long email from my boss for me, that's all handled on device by Apple's own model.
So it never leaves the phone. It's private.
100% private. But if you ask a general knowledge question like, write me a poem about a sad robot in the style of Shakespeare, or who won the World Cup in 1998?
Something the phone itself wouldn't know.
Right. The phone realizes it doesn't have that information, so it securely hands off that request to Google Gemini in the cloud. But, and this is the critical part, it strips all of your personal identifiers from the request before it sends it.
So Google gets the question, but they have no idea who asked it.
Exactly. It protects user privacy.
That still feels like a precarious position to be in, though, relying on your biggest rival for such a core feature of your new OS.
It is complex, no doubt. But what it allows Apple to do is focus their energy on what they're actually best at, which is creating the agentic experience.
I keep hearing that word everywhere, agentic. Sounds like more corporate speak. What does it actually mean for the person listening who just wants their phone to work better?
Think of the old Siri as being like a librarian. You ask a direct question, she finds a direct answer. And agentic Siri is more like a personal executive assistant. You don't just ask it questions, you give it complex tasks.
Give me a real-world example.
Okay, so you're driving home. You say to Siri, send the photos I took at the BBQ last night to everyone who was tagged in them.
Right. Old Siri would probably just say, I found some search results for BBQ on the web.
Exactly. Agentic Siri understands that BBQ last night refers to a specific time and location in your photo library. It uses on-device computer vision to identify the faces in those photos. It cross-references those faces with your contacts list. It opens the Messages app. It drafts individual text to each person with their pictures. And then it just prompts you to confirm before sending.
So it's performing a multi-step workflow across completely different applications.
That's the agentic part. It's an agent acting on your behalf.
That sounds incredible, but I'll believe it when I see it work flawlessly. Siri has burned us before, with promises of being smarter.
Skepticism is always healthy when it comes to Siri. But with this new large language model integration, the underlying capability is finally there. The reasoning engine, the part of the AI that understands your intent, is just light years ahead of where it was even in 2024.
And this all ties back to the hardware, doesn't it? Because my old iPhone 14 can't run that local reasoning engine.
Correct. You need an iPhone 17 or newer because of the Advanced Neural Processing Unit, the NPU, and that right there is the monetization lever. AI isn't a charity product for Apple, it's a hardware sales driver.
Which brings us right to the engine room, the silicon. We need to talk about the hardware on the horizon. We're hearing about a brand new chip, the A20.
The A20 is the next brain. And the big news here, the really big news, is the manufacturing process. It's going to be built using TSMC's new 2-nanometer process.
2 nanometers. We're getting to a point where we're measuring these transistors in, what, individual atoms.
We are getting remarkably close to the physical limits of silicon. To give you some perspective, a single strand of human hair is about 80 to 100,000 nanometers wide. We're talking about features that are 2 nanometers. It's engineering on a scale that's almost impossible to comprehend.
Okay, so besides bragging rights, why does that matter to me? Does it make my Instagram load faster?
It's not just about raw speed, it's about efficiency. The jump from 3 nanometer to 2 nanometer gives you about a 15% speed boost, which is nice.
Right.
But the killer spec is a 30% improvement in power efficiency.
30%. That means better battery life. That's the one thing every single user actually cares about.
That's the one. But there's another technical innovation happening here that's even more interesting than just the node size. It's a new packaging technology called WMCM.
Okay, you're getting nerdy on me now. Break down WMCM, wafer level.
Wafer level multi-chip module. Think of a city planner. In the old days, well, even today, the processor, which is like the office building where work gets done, and the RAM, which is like the library where information is stored, are in different buildings.
Oh.
You have to drive down the street to get data from the library. That drive takes time, and it burns gas, or in this case, battery.
Makes sense.
With WMCM, they are building the library inside the office building. They are integrating the RAM chips directly onto the same package, the same wafer, as the processor.
So there's zero commute time.
Exactly. Data transfer becomes almost instantaneous. This is absolutely essential for AI because AI models are huge and they need to constantly read data from that memory. Plus, it saves a ton of physical space on the motherboard, which means they can put in a physically larger battery.
It sounds like a win-win, but there's always a catch, isn't there? And this catch has a very dramatic name, Ramageddon.
Yes, Ramageddon. It sounds like a summer blockbuster movie, but it's a very real and very serious supply chain war that's brewing.
A war?
Yeah.
What's happening? Who's fighting who?
It's a battle for resources between the smartphone and the data center. Think about this global AI boom. Microsoft, Google, Meta, Amazon. They are all building these massive server farms to train and run AI.
Okay.
And those servers need an incredible amount of a special kind of memory called high bandwidth memory, or HBM.
Right.
But the factories that make the raw silicon wafers for all memory are finite. There are only so many. So if Samsung and SK Hynix shift their production lines to make more HBM for data centers because the profit margins are huge, they have less capacity to produce the standard LPDDR memory that goes into phones.
The data centers are basically gobbling up all the memory supply.
They're gobbling it up, supply is getting constrained just as demand is skyrocketing, and when that happens, prices explode. And this is all happening at the exact same moment that Apple needs more memory than ever in its phones to run all these new on-device AI models.
So high demand, low supply, and Apple needs more of it per phone. That sounds expensive.
Very expensive. Early estimates suggest that the new 2-nm chips, combined with this memory crunch, could make the components for the next iPhone 50% more expensive to manufacture.
50%.
Which creates enormous pricing pressure for the upcoming iPhone 18.
So is this it? Is this the moment we get a $2,000 entry-level iPhone? Is that where this is all heading?
That is the big multi-trillion-dollar question. My prediction, and what a lot of analysts are suggesting, is that Apple will try to hold the line on the starting app price. They'll want to maintain market share. They might even eat some of their margin on the base models. But they will almost certainly raise the ceiling on the high-end models, the Pro Max, a potential Ultra model, to compensate for it.
Or they could just change the entire game. Which brings us to the next section. The rumors about the iPhone 18 launch strategy are wild, and they seem custom designed to solve this exact supply chain problem.
This is one of the most significant shifts in Apple's entire product history, if it turns out to be true. The rumor is a split launch strategy.
So instead of one big event in September where they launch 4 new phones at once.
They're breaking it up.
Tell me more.
The scoop is this. Fall 2026. So this September will be for the high-end models only. You'll get the iPhone 18 Pro, the iPhone 18 Pro Max, and the iPhone Fold.
The Fold. The mythical beast. We'll get to that in a second. And the standard models come later.
In spring 2027, that's when you'll see the standard iPhone 18 and maybe even a new budget-focused 18e model.
But why do this? Why break a tradition that has worked for over a decade? September is iPhone month. It's practically written in stone.
It solves a massive logistics crunch. Instead of one insane quarter and 3 relatively quiet ones, you get 2 big revenue bumps a year. It smooths everything out. But more importantly, it helps them navigate Ramageddon.
How, specifically?
They don't need to procure 80 million of the world's most advanced chips all at once for a September launch. They can spread that demand out over 6 months.
Right.
It reduces the strain on TSMC and the memory suppliers. They can buy the absolute best, most expensive memory for the Pro models in the fall, and then source the standard memory for the base models in the spring. It's a supply chain survival tactic.
That makes a ton of sense. Okay, but we can't dance around it any longer. The iPhone Fold. Is it finally actually happening?
The iPhone Fold, it's been the Loch Ness monster of tech rumors for, 5 years now? But the supply chain leaks have become too specific and too consistent to ignore. It is coming this fall.
Finally. But I'm reading the rumored specs here, and I'm not sure I'm happy about it.
It's definitely going to be a polarizing device. Let's look at the form factor. It's a book-style fold. Think of taking an iPad mini and folding it in half like a book.
Okay.
So when it's closed, you have a 5.3-inch screen on the front. When you open it up, you get this massive 7.6-inch canvas on the inside.
The biggest complaint about every foldable I've ever touched, the Pixels, the Galaxies, is the crease. You run your thumb down the middle, and there's this noticeable dip that just ruins the illusion.
And that is reportedly the exact reason Apple waited so long to enter this market. They were chasing the no-crease holy grail. The rumors say they're using a brand new hinge made from a liquid metal and titanium alloy.
Liquid metal. That sounds like something out of the Terminator movies.
It allows the screen to bend into a gentle teardrop shape inside the hinge mechanism, rather than being forced into a hard, flat crease. The claim is that the crease will be visually invisible and, more importantly, tactilely undetectable.
Okay, that sounds incredibly premium.
Yeah.
But then I see the rumored price tag, and I see the compromises they had to make, and I get really confused. We're hearing numbers like $2,500?
The range is somewhere between $1,800 and $2,500. It's being positioned as a super premium tier, above even the Pro Max.
For $2,500, this thing had better make me breakfast. But you're telling me it doesn't have Face ID.
Space constraints. To get the device that thin, we're talking 4.5 millimeters when unfolded, which is absurdly thin. They couldn't fit the deep sensing camera array needed for Face ID, so they've moved back to Touch ID, integrated into the power button.
Wait, hold on. I'm paying more than I would for a MacBook Pro to go backwards in technology to a fingerprint sensor. That feels like a regression. I love Face ID. It's totally seamless.
It is absolutely a compromise for the sake of the form factor. And it's the same story with the cameras. There's no telephoto zoom lens.
No zoom?
You physically cannot fit a periscope lens stack into a device body that thin. It's not possible.
So I lose my zoom, I lose my Face ID, and I pay double the price. Who on earth is this phone for?
It's for the person who wears a Patek Philippe watch. Not because it tells time any better than a $5 Casio, but because it's a marvel of engineering and a powerful status symbol. The iPhone Fold isn't a utility device. It's a piece of jewelry. It's a flex.
That feels like a dangerous pivot for Apple, moving from we make the best tool for the job to we make the fanciest toy.
It is a risk, but that's exactly why they're splitting the launch. If you want the best tool, the one with no compromises, you buy the iPhone 18 Pro Max. It will have the best zoom, it will have Face ID, it will have everything. The Fold is for an entirely different customer.
Okay, so speaking of the iPhone 18 Pro, what kind of upgrades are we expecting there? Is it just the same phone with a faster chip again?
The big rumor for the camera system is a variable aperture lens.
Ooh, the photography nerds are going to absolutely lose their minds over that.
They will. It allows the camera to mechanically change the size of the opening that lets light in, just like on a DSLR. Right now, phone cameras have a fixed aperture.
Right.
With a variable one, you get real physical control over depth of field, that blurry background bokeh effect, instead of just relying on software to fake it. It's a huge leap forward for mobile photography.
And what about under-display Face ID? Are we finally getting rid of the dynamic island?
The rumors suggest it's getting smaller, at least, potentially moving to just a small hole punch cutout for the camera. It's all about maximizing that screen real estate.
All right, so let's put it all together. We've got record earnings, a booming services empire, a very clever AI strategy, and a pipeline full of futuristic, if expensive, hardware. Let's talk valuation. Let's talk about the stock.
The $5.3 trillion question.
Is that the actual bull case target? A $5.3 trillion market cap.
That's the bull case being put forward by some of the major analysts for 2026.
How in the world do they get to a number that big? Break down the math for me.
It's a convergence of three main things. First, you have this new super premium hardware cycle driven by the expensive Fold and the higher-priced Pro models. That drives top-line revenue growth.
Okay, more revenue.
Second, you have the maturation of the AI monetization strategy. People are upgrading their phones faster than they used to, specifically to get the new AI features. That accelerates the upgrade cycle.
And the third piece.
A structural expansion of free cash flow margins, which is really just a fancy way of saying services are extremely profitable.
Right.
As that services revenue becomes a bigger piece of the overall pie. And remember, software has something like a 70 or 80% profit margin compared to maybe 35 for hardware. The overall profit margin of the entire company gets fatter. And Wall Street loves high margins. They'll pay a premium for that. They'll expand the PE multiple on the stock.
So it becomes what they call a safe premium holding.
Exactly. The big institutional investors, the pension funds, they look at Apple and they see a company that generates cash, like a boring utility company, but has the growth potential of a tech giant. It's the best of both worlds.
But we have to be balanced here. What's the bear case? What could possibly go wrong?
Regulation. That is the big one. The Department of Justice lawsuit in the U.S. alleging monopoly practices is still looming over them. And in Europe, the Digital Markets Act is actively forcing them to open up their ecosystem to allow third-party app stores to change how Apple Pay works. That's a direct threat to that lucrative services revenue.
If the EU forces them to allow other app stores on the iPhone, they lose that 30% cut they take.
Correct. That is a direct, multi-billion-dollar hit to the bottom line. It's a serious risk.
And what about geopolitics?
Always a risk. Tariffs, trade tensions with China. Apple's supply chain is still incredibly dependent on China, even as they've made efforts to diversify into India and Vietnam. If things get rocky between Washington and Beijing, Apple is caught right in the crossfire.
But despite all those risks, the consensus seems to be just keep holding the stock.
It is. At the end of the day, the ecosystem stickiness is just too powerful. Once you're in with your photos in iCloud, watching F1 on Apple TV, editing your videos in Creator Studio, you're not leaving. The switching costs, both in terms of money and hassle, are just too high.
It's the Hotel California of tech. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
And to be honest, you probably don't even want to. The experience is that good.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. We have covered a ton of ground today.
We really have. We saw record earnings that basically told all the skeptics we are not dead. $143 billion says so.
We saw this massive Really clever strategic pivot to AI, using Google as a partner to stay nimble and avoid burning billions.
And we're seeing the sheer power of that 2.5 billion user installed base, which is driving a subscription engine that rivals Netflix and Spotify combined.
And looking ahead, we have a fall that could bring us the most futuristic and also the most expensive iPhone we have ever seen.
It's a fascinating time to be watching this company. They are not standing still.
Before we go, I want to leave our listener with one final thought, something a bit provocative to chew on.
Okay, let's hear it.
We talked about Creator Studio. We talked about exclusive sports rights. We talked about essentially renting AI intelligence from Google. Are we moving toward a future where we don't really buy Apple products anymore? Are we heading to a world where you don't buy an iPhone, you just subscribe to the Apple lifestyle?
That's a fascinating concept, hardware as a service. You just pay, say, $100 a month, and you get the phone, the F1 subscription, the AI features, the iCloud storage. You never truly own any of it.
Exactly. And my follow-up to that is, if that iPhone Fold really does cost $2,500, has the smartphone officially transitioned from being a utility, something everyone needs, like a refrigerator, to a luxury status symbol, like a Rolex watch?
Wow.
Are we going to see a split in society where the wealthy have these incredible folding devices and the rest of us just have the normal slab phones?
You're talking about a digital class divide, where the technology is available to everyone, but the form factor itself becomes the status symbol. That's a very real possibility.
Something to chew on while you're waiting for that iPhone 18 launch this fall. Thank you so much for breaking all of this down with me today.
My pleasure. It's always fun to dive deep into these numbers.
And to everyone listening, thanks for tuning in to the Pro Ticker Deep Dive. Keep looking beneath the numbers and keep diving deep. We'll see you next time.